Hello everybody and welcome to this scene. We've got this lovely Victorian Christmas landscape. I created this using Midjourney, an AI program. I am working on the pastel matte paper. It's in the pale yellow color. I think they call it maize. So because this was an AI generated image, there are quite a few mistakes. I never really noticed these mistakes until it came to actually pasteling the work. Basically, the horses are pulling some wagons, and it's hard to tell when looking close up whether the horses are facing towards you or facing away from you. And so you're trying to make sense. Is it the back of the horse or is this the front of the horse? So I just had to make some decisions and pastel in what I thought just made the most sense, which made it a bit tricky. There's a lot in here, like I said, when you look close up, that things don't really make sense. There's a lady in the bottom left. She's wearing the red dress. Her body is not facing the same way as her head. So it's just those kinds of things that you have to look out for, things that don't really make sense. If I had copied a still life that I'd set up in my studio or a photograph that somebody had taken or I had taken, obviously it would make the work quite a bit easier because you're just copying what you're seeing. Where here I'm having to invent and draw in new features into the painting, which is a little bit more time consuming. Anyway, it's just something to be aware. If I had prepared this properly, I felt quite rushed because it was Christmas around the corner and I was still trying to finish up work because I have two jobs. Anyway, so if I had more time and thought about this properly, I actually would have sketched this out first before I went straight in with my pastel, just so I could correct any of the mistakes on a separate piece of paper. And when I was happy with the composition and with the shape of things, then I could have translated that into the actual pastel work. So sometimes preparation is a really good thing, but my style and my personality, I tend to just jump straight in. So I'm using a lot of pastel pencils in this piece because I'm not working too big. The size of this is 28 centimeters by about 30 centimeters, so it's not large at all. It's a little bit larger than A4. And there's a lot going on. You've got buildings, we've got trees, we've got snow, we've got a wall, we've got carriages, horses, people, babies, little toddlers, and snow. So pastel pencils work really nicely when you're trying to get in all this detail. And it's not high detail, but there is just a lot of different elements that I'm wanting to get in because, I mean, that is the scene that I've chosen. So basically, for the snow, I used A47 and A48 by Unison. They're not white, they are like a very pale, muted bluish grey colors. And I used those for the background, where you can see it's all misty and hazy and snowy. And I think those two colors worked really, really well together to create the snow in the scene. But yeah, so I use a combination of my soft pastels and my pastel pencils, but a lot of pastel pencils. Like I said, just because I got the small points, it's easy to get the detail. I said earlier, not high detail, but you know, there is some detail. We've got hats, we've got scarves, we've got like horses, the reins of the horse. There is some detail, but it's not a highly detailed piece of work. This piece of work actually looks better the further away you step from it. Up close, it looks pretty awful. It's one of those where, but when you step back, it's just a scene and it's just, yeah, quite pleasant to look at. But don't go up close because it's just would look odd. So this lady we've got here in the red, I changed her body shape because it's like it just wasn't making sense in the reference photograph. So she is facing forwards but slightly to the side. So that's one change that I made, that I had to make, because the reference photograph, it was just really quite strange and odd. Um, Another feature which was quite difficult to achieve was the faces. Like I mentioned, there is no high detail in here. It's just impressions of an eye, a nose, a moustache. You know, it's not detailed, so you can't see exactly the features. And I'm sure there are a few YouTube tutorials where it will teach you how to paint a face very loosely. I don't paint figures at all. I've had a few commissions where I've painted people, but usually that was working from high definition photograph. So that's easy to do, or easier to do. I found having to put in the human features into these faces so difficult, because they looked just so wrong. Um, and I didn't spend I didn't spend hours and hours trying to get the facial features correct. Because again, I felt like when I stepped back from the work, the whole scene was making sense. So I didn't really spend too much time on little details like the eyes or the nose. But yeah, I do enjoy putting people, or through doing this, I've decided I enjoy putting people in a landscape. I just think it adds a little bit more interest, and it is something that I'm wanting to get better at doing. So my little task for myself is to have a look and see what can I learn from somebody who paints loosely humans in landscapes. And because this is my first one, really, actually. um, anyway, enough of that. The buildings, these were quite fun to produce, actually. So I used again a mixture of pastels and pastel pencils to get the initial shape in the buildings, like the chimneys and the wall, the structure of the windows. I used pastel pencils so that I'm actually drawing those shapes in there. And then when I'm happy with the shape, often I'll go over with a pastel stick, because it lays down more pigment than a pastel pencil. But first I want to make sure that I'm happy with the shape. Otherwise I'm going to be correcting mistakes, which is fine. And you can do it on pastel paper, but it just takes a bit of time. And overall, I was pretty rushed with time for this one. As I mentioned, I wanted to get it out before Christmas Day. There I'm just explaining how I'm going to do these wagons and which way the horses are going to be facing. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized, oh yeah, the horses are actually facing forward. So then I was able to pastel that in. It looks terrible at the moment. But again, like I said, I'm not putting in details. I'm just needing it to get the impression of, oh yes, that's a horse pulling a wagon. That's all I need. I don't need hyperrealism or even so much detail in here at all. I just need some shapes. So you can see the pastel pencils, using a lot of those, because basically the size that I'm pasteling must be about 4 centimeters long by about 3 centimeters wide. It's really quite small. So I just find it's just much easier with the pastel pencils. Um, Here I'm just also, I often use pastel pencils, like I said, to draw in the initial outlines. And then I will go over, when I'm happy with the shape, then I will go over with a pastel stick. It was quite fun to do the little people, like I've said, the different colors of clothing, the little nuances in the dark black coats that the men are wearing. They look pretty solid black on screen here, but there is some variances. Like on the shoulder, I used some gray, so it was a little bit brighter. You can't, it's not really picking up well in it, but in real life, you can definitely see it's not just a dead black. So this part was really tricky, doing the front of this horse. Now, because this horse is sitting closer in the painting, so it's closer to the viewer, I did need to make sure that I had a bit more details in there. So initially filling in the drawing with my pastel pencils and then going over with pastel sticks. I actually worked on this horse for quite a while. It was quite a challenge. I've got my reference photograph right next to me. I find that easier when I work, is to have my reference up close so that my eyes have a shorter distance to travel when I'm pasteling. I really struggled with this horse. So it took me a while. This part of the painting, like I said, took quite a while. Even then, I would say I'm not particularly happy with the way the horse turned out. But when you step back from the painting and you look at the painting as a whole, it isn't that horrible. You know, it kind of just fits in with the whole scene. I also think if I had to do this painting again or something similar, I don't like doing the same painting twice. If I had to do something similar, like a big scene with a lot going on, I think I would go bigger. I think I would go a little bit bigger than A3 because then I can get some more of those details in. I would then also make sure my photograph is accurate. Or if I produce it with the AI Mid-Journey program, I would first make sure and have a good detailed look at that reference to make sure everything is making sense. And if it isn't, then sketch out the parts that aren't making sense till I've got a whole sketch that I'm happy with, that I know is going to translate into a good pastel painting. Sorry, I didn't realize I actually put my photo there in a really bad spot. I thought I'd moved it. Obviously I hadn't. Oh, whoopsie. That's a bit silly actually. Anyway, so just carrying on filling in the little details of her dress, the man behind. So what I was using there for the quick few seconds, I'm not sure if you noticed, was a paper stump or a tortillon, which is so helpful because like I said, overall this painting's quite small, so the little details of the people, the carriage, the windows is even smaller, and even my pinky is just too large to soften any of the pastel marks I make. So by using a tortillon, you're able to manipulate the pigment you've put down into a different area where your finger's just too big. So I use this a lot, the tortillon. Really useful little tool to have. It's got a lovely sharp pointed edge, and to clean the tortillon, just sand it off with a bit of paper, or you can even rub it on a piece of scrap copier paper. So this is on my Patreon channel in real time, where I'll be chatting you through as I'm pasteling along. If you want to see that, I'll leave a link in the description below. It's a small monthly fee that you can cancel at any time to become a member. I hope you've enjoyed this, but I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.